I'm very proud of the 4-month run I had as Employee of the Month at Sal's Slippery Fish Hut.
Maddie is a storyboard artist, a voiceover artist, and a professional comedy punch-up writer. I only asked her one question, but it's the one everybody secretly wants answered. How can you be funnier even if you don't think you're naturally funny? We're going to hear her answer right after this 4-second intro that Maddie created for me. Welcome back to Punch It Up, Find the Funny Friday. Please welcome in Maddie Taylor with some warm applause. Thanks, Future House. Ms. Taylor, did I miss any credits that you might want to add?
I'm very proud of the 4-month run I had as Employee of the Month at Sal's Slippery Fish Hut.
Alliteration is another tool.
There we go.
Maddie's actually a very naturally funny person. On a channel where I'm trying to teach the everyday Joe that anybody can add humor to their lives, I have just the one question. If you, as a naturally funny person, were to advise someone who's trying to up the humor quotient in their life, what is the one piece of advice you would give them?
Think unusually. Something that I use as a rule of thumb, and it doesn't always bring a joke, but at least it sets my mind up to think that way, is I always think of the opposite of something. Because people have patterns, people, the way we talk to each other, we see each other, whether it's social environments, personal or work environments, and you see the same people. So if somebody says to you something like, hey, what do you got planned for the weekend? The usual family stuff, a bank robbery, crime spree, the usual. It might not be the funniest thing anybody ever said, like, as opposed to what I just came up with. But for me, it is a tool and a device, and it's something that I have used, and I do think about as sort of a staple of like, what is a kind of a way to come up with something that's funny in a moment. Working in animation has also prepped me for that. I worked with a guy, his name was David Feast. He created a very funny show that was on, I think, Cartoon Network. It's called Cow and Chicken. He had a character called the Red Guy who was sort of a devil. And he said he had a rule of thumb that any time, and he was sort of the comedic bad guy, anytime the Red Guy would make an appearance when he would come into a scene, he would have him come in every single way except walk in. So sometimes he would scoot in on his butt, or he'd walk in on his hands, or he'd fly in. But he said he went out of his way to make sure he never came into a room in a normal way. Trying to break out of your regular patterns of thinking what anybody would expect you to say about something and just think of something different. And the sillier, the better.
In order to get to the opposite, when the answer to a question is no, you just say yes. Did you have a good weekend? No, I went to a play. You know what I mean? See? Have you seen Hamilton yet?
I have. I got a couple of 10s from the grocery store.
Nice.
It'll extend outside of just being funny. I think it's a fun way to entertain yourself. It's like it keeps your thinking fresh. If you're meeting new people and you show them that you're at least open to finding some humor in a situation, it will always stand you in good stead, because people, even if you're just meeting them, they'll see that you're thinking that way. You'll see that your mind is kind of geared that way and you're that kind of a person. And I think it's going to put people at ease that they say, oh, right off the bat, I can see this person is at least kind of into having some fun with stuff. When you're relaxed, that other person will relax. And I think you'll find that each other will engage.
In my business as an actor, sometimes you get the job not because you're better, but because the people in the room think you're going to be more fun on the set. I'm trying to think of like a sitcom character that is unredeemable in some ways, but they're funny, right? And so people like them.
Cliff Clavin from Cheers was always that guy who was like sort of that like know-it-all character. You talk about anything, he'd know this and that. And then he was so pompous that when everybody else would kind of burst his pompous bubble, it was really funny.
But Diane is unlikable as well, and people loved her and wanted them to be together. Spoiler, they don't end up together.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They're almost unredeemable. They put the pedal to the metal, they put their foot right to the floor, and they drive right at it.
Just to get a base.
You want to put your baby into a tanning bed.
Just to get a base.
There have been times where I'm proud of my work as an artist, but I have not been the strongest draftsman in a room, but I've been one of the funniest people in the room. And that has stood me in good stead, in as much as I've been able to contribute story ideas to TV shows and movies and jokes and dialogue. I would say look at the magical elf song from the first open season.
Once there was a magical elf who lived in a rainbow tree.
He lived downstairs from a fledgling dwarf who was constantly having to pee.
I wrote that.
Maddie did a short film called Cairnsaurus Rex that won an award.
It's available on Instagram and on the internet, and I'll provide you the link.
Thank you so much, Maddie Taylor.
Thank you for having me here.
Hey, if you have $6 burning a hole in your pocket, get my little audiobook. Thanks so much for staying at the end. You have no idea how much that means. Like and subscribe. It really helps. She's going to get funnier. I promise.
Sounds so like, sorry, I can't help it be so funny, but I'm just used to thinking of joke. It was such a weird set of words that made me laugh when I thought of it.
One day the elf could take no more, so he went and banged on the rude dwarf's door. And what do you know? They suddenly both were married.